Good morning, good people. I am privileged to be in a space with some incredible people who are doing remarkable work around public safety in their community. But first, let me introduce one of the, well, at least one of my heroes and person who has been at this for a while and whose wisdom and that we're going to be seeking today is Dr. Sokoni Karanja. The founder of Centers for New Horizon. He had recently stepped down in 2016 to be president of an organization called MIAT. He has founded his new organization with the belief that people who better know and understand each other are less likely to become violent towards each other. In 2016, MIAT then will focus on the moderation and eventual elimination of violence by forging and strengthening unity in Chicago's communities of color. Its mission, in a word, is peace. Dr. Karanja is married to Loyola University professor Ayana Karanja. Dr. Ayana Karanja, if I want to correct myself, and is a father of 7, a native of Topeka, Kansas. Dr. Karanja, in his formative years, was witness to grassroots strategy meeting that led to Brown versus Board of Education and began his first organizing experience by galvanizing support of desegregating his neighborhood movie theater. Dr. Karanja holds 3 master's degrees, psychology, social work, and community development, earned his Ph.D. at Brandeis University, and is a MacArthur Genius Award winner. I think the first, right, Doc?
Big pardon?
I think you were the first. I'm not sure.
First? No, I wasn't the first.
Okay.
I was surprised, but I was not the first. There was the lady out there in Washington, D.C. I forget her name, but that was the first person I ever knew that have received that honor, you know.
Okay. Well, then,
I don't remember her name.
Well, you did receive it, so that's a big deal right there.
Yeah,
so,
well,
that's all good.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we have the opportunity for people to introduce themselves? And if you want to reintroduce yourself to Dr. Karanja, that's cool too in your present position right now and what you're doing. So why don't we go around?
Okay, I'll start off. As you've already said, my name is Sokoni Karanja, and we've been working on this since actually the summer of 2016. A lady, sister by the name of April Bernard, introduced us to a guy in Milwaukee, who was doing some work on the street. He was former policeman, but had changed his allegiance to God and become a minister. So I don't know how you deal with that. But anyway, he was a Caucasian fellow, is a Caucasian fellow, and he had some good ideas. Walking, talking to folks, and engaging them in the community, and we started out doing it that same thing there at 47th and Prairie in December 1st, 2015. December. So it was the summer of 2015. December 1st, 2015. That was our first move into the community at 47th and Prairie, yeah. And we walked that street from that moment, December 1st, to April 16th. And I remember that date because that's my wife's birthday, and I had to get out of there and go deal with her celebration. So Alderman Dow had called a clean and green session, and we met there at the corner of 51st and Prairie, and Then we moved over to 51st and Calumet, and that's when we were first introduced to Parkview Towers apartments. And we cleaned up there for weeks, and then finally somebody decided we should bail the cat and go into Parkview Towers, and we did. And we met a lot of wonderful people, and then it started to build, and we created a tenant council there at Parkview Towers, and eventually we had several groups of people that were observing. I should mention that there were, at that time, 26 homicides in that immediate area. And that was in early 2016. And by the next year, 2017, the homicides had dropped, and I'm not sure of the exact number, but it was way below the 26, 27 that occurred in 2016. And a lot of that was due to the work of the people in the neighborhood. I don't know, Santressa can probably tell you when she joined the group, but we were out there cleaning up and doing all kinds of things to just try to make contact with people in the neighborhood and get them engaged. Amandila was there with us, and several other people, John Owens, others. So that's how we got started, and then it just seemed to mushroom. So,
thank you, Doc. What, Santressa,
Yes.
what is your role, and how did you get involved?
Well, my role isn't as far as important as Mr. Karanja's.
Hey, girl, you better not say that.
Well, basically, I kind of stumbled onto it accidentally. I was actually on my way to the corner store, and I saw those beautiful group of people outside cleaning up. And actually, that wasn't my first time. And you know, in our neighborhood, we get those type of people that comes like maybe once a year and probably clean up, throw a block party, and they own about their way. So I'm like, okay, it must be one of those type of things. But I noticed that I kept seeing them, and I was like, okay, who is these people? And they keep coming back, and one of the people from the group approached me, you know, just made, you know, idle conversation and kind of gave me a little bit of what they were doing, and also offered my son some like learning hours, because in high school you got to do community service. So they offered those hours to my son, and also told me that there was, you know, there in the community to actually help. And so I saw them kept coming back. So I'm like, well, I know personally I have certain issues with my community. So I feel you're either part of the solution or the problem. So I'm like, if these people can get out their bed, come to my neighborhood and make a difference, and I live here, why not? So that's kind of how it started from day one.
Thank you for sharing. Amadillo?
Yeah, I got involved. Well, I've been a community organizer all my life, really, since a teenager, and you know, was born here in the Bronzeville area, and had left for a while, went to Minnesota, and came back after college, and have traveled different places and stuff, but always felt a deep affinity to my roots here. And was always seeking opportunities to be involved in, you know, some positive community organizing. And I met John Owens at it was a convention about a group called the Bronzeville Alliance. No, in fact, I saw a little blurb, and I think it was in the Defender about the meeting that was being held at, not Doolittle, but what's that school over there off King and 26, is it Doolittle? Yeah, I think it is Doolittle. But at any rate, they had a meeting there, and I went and I met John, and they had broke up into groups and were talking about the work they were going to do. That was it.
It wasn't Doolittle. It was right across the street here on Calumet. I forget.
Pershing. That's what it was.
Pershing West.
Pershing West.
Pershing West.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
That's what it was. Yeah. And yeah, I'll never forget, because it was just a really well done event, and they were talking about a comprehensive approach to the issues in the community. And that just really resonated with me because, you know, from my experiences being in this a long time, I saw that you can't really just approach the struggle from one angle. You know, if you're going to deal with housing, you got to deal with education. If you deal with education, you got to deal with employment. If you deal with employment, you got to deal with public safety. If you deal with public safety, you have to deal with the tax base and transportation and all of the things that make up a vibrant community. So, and the Bronzeville Alliance was, you know, committing itself to this goal. And that just really, you know, moved me. And I wanted to get involved. I got involved in the education committee. And John and I started working together on a thing called the Family History Project. And Doc and John and I, we had brought in Tony Burrows, well-known genealogist, and others that were in the field. And we began to use that as a tool to engage some of the schools in the area. But to make the long story short, I, you know, was just hooked and got involved. We ended up getting into establishing a community garden and really pushing an environmental justice program. And eventually, we came up with the idea of the Bronzeville Abundance Campaign, which was to tap into all of the incredible resources that are here in Bronzeville and approach it from a position of strength, as opposed to looking at all the things we do not have and going out, you know, begging, if that's not too strong a word, others to fill in those gaps, instead of us just picking up the, you know, coconuts on the ground right in front of us and just using those. So like Doc said, you know, Dr. Bernard had approached us about this campaign to just start going out and doing small tasks in the community, like cleaning up and so forth. And so that's what we did. My role has primarily been in documenting a lot of this work. You know, I do some physical labor too, but generally they, you know, have pretty much encouraged me to use my camera as the tool for, you know, engaging this work and documenting it. Because so often, as Teresa said, people come into the community, they do little spot stuff here and there, but then it's just not really part of a campaign that's really pushing for change. It's just kind of a piecemeal kind of effort. So through documenting the work and using it as a tool for education, for promotion, for fundraising, it kind of gives a context and a background, makes it real for people, because they can see that, wow, okay, you really were out there every second and fourth Saturday picking up trash and having meetings, and you did establish a garden. I see you right here. You're picking up the shovels and you're, you know, digging dirt, and wow, here's the trailer you brought in and dumped it right there on the grass. So, you know, that's pretty much the role I play.
It's a big role.
Essential role. He's an essential worker.
No, for real. So tell me about the community. I'm here in Bronzeville. So are we talking Bronzeville as the community of focus?
Actually, it's Washington Park.
Okay.
Washington Park is part of Bronzeville. You got Grand Boulevard, Washington Park. Down further north, you've got
Douglas.
I can't believe I've forgotten the names of these communities, but
Yeah,
it moves on down. But I'm just remembering what you said about Doolittle. That first meeting we had was at Doolittle. I just remembered that we actually had that first meeting at Doolittle. but we didn't have any more meetings at Doolittle. Our next meeting was at Pershing West,
Okay.
where because we continue to have those meetings periodically, just to bring the community up to date.
So when you say community, so you're talking about all of those communities then, right? We're not talking about just where St. Teresa.
Yes, but most of those communities that are north of Washington Park have begun a rebuilding process. Washington Park is the last community in what would be called Bronzeville. If you look at Black Metropolis, in the front, there's a map that shows Bronzeville. And Bronzeville for us extends all the way from Roosevelt Road, which is not anything you'll find in the white books, to 67th Street. So, Timo Black tells us, who works with us as well, tells us that, he got off the train and told his parents to walk up the steps. He was 3, by the way. Walk up the steps, and they walked right into Bronzeville. He said he's been here ever since. So that's his story about how all this began.
Well, you mentioned, Bronzeville and Timo Black. For folk who don't know, because, there's people from all over who'll be seeing and hearing this, is that why is Bronzeville so important in the Black community? I mean, for us to know this historically.
Wow, that's a loaded question. And, we often say that as goes Bronzeville, goes the rest of Black Chicago and really Black America. So much of our culture and style and ideology has grown up here in this very, 5-10 mile radius. And it has been consistent. I mean, consistently great, consistently excellent, time and time again, and through great struggle. I mean, there's been, you had the, in 1919, the Red Summer, the racial uprisings. And this was one of the bloodiest conflicts of all of those. And the soldiers returning from World War I were a big part of that. And there's a monument to them right on 35th and King Drive that, reminds us of that great sacrifice. And so many other great businesses, the Black Metropolis that grew up here, Gwendolyn Brooks, Poet Laureate, Margaret Burroughs, and the DeSable Museum. I mean, it's just over and over and over again. I just recently, Herbie Hancock turned 80. Can y'all believe that? No. Herbie Hancock is 80 years old. That's amazing. He went to Hyde Park High School. Quincy Jones lived in Rosenwald complex. Just over and over and over again. And our children particularly need to know this, because when they look at the news and they see our community portrayed in this very opposite way, our counter narrative has to be able to challenge that and to broaden their perspective and to get them to understand that, look, you have no idea of the greatness that you are surrounded by. So that's my soapbox.
Do you see it that way as well, or how do you look at your community? You look at it as the block, or you look at it as all of that Amandela just shared?
Well, honestly, I'm glad he said that, because me being a person from, I'll say, disadvantaged communities, because I've been from project development since I was a child. And what I see, well, I'm speaking in past tense now, what I've seen looking around is just so negative, not even just what the news say. When we walk out our doors, we seeing liquor bottles on the ground. We surrounded by crackheads and alcoholics. We seeing our people not motivated, just in this box of just not willing to do better and be better. and feel unmotivated and feel embarrassed of where we live until I met them. I felt like unmotivated, like this is where I'm at. Like I live on 51st and Calumet. It's nothing inspiring when I walk outside. But as he just stated all these different facts, I realized how much history and how much, possibility that we have around us. If you don't know, you won't have a better outlook on life. Like as I'm learning and listening, I feel better now about where I'm at, because I was just like, the only way I can do better and be better is if I move out, which is something that I want to do. But now I feel better about where I'm at because I'm in historic surroundings.
Okay, but you shouldn't underplay what you've done. You raised, how many boys you got?
Two boys and 2 girls.
2 boys, 2 girls. Got 4 kids. They all, none of them in jail. They all are right there in one of the toughest communities in the country. And she's managed to bring them up. And one of them's in school, I think his 2nd, 3rd year at college, and doing really well, exceptional student. That kind of thing is a part of the heroism that exists in our community, very quietly, but very positively. And that's what we have to honor, that kind of, because that's what makes us strong, and we've got to begin to tap into that and tie it into everything else that we're trying to do. And that's what we're trying to do there in Washington Park.
So does Myatt as the organization, do they promote that? And if so, how do they do that? So in other words, tell me about Myatt.
Beg pardon?
Could you tell us about Mott, the organization?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure and I know we know, that Ma'at is the ancient guidelines for the African world. And there were 37 principles of Ma'at. The 7 that we focus on, truth, justice, righteousness, balance, order, propriety, and harmony, are the ones that we celebrate on a regular basis, but they are part of 37 principles that the African world practiced from ancient Egypt to the present. So we try to put those things into practice every day in the Bronzeville Abundance Campaign in our work. We've established 3-4 phone trees. My memory is not as good as I'd like to have it be, but we have 3 or 4 phone trees that we established when we first got there and discovered how much homicide was going on in the community. And those phone trees allowed us to begin to call and get the police to come. We still have those problems. About 2 months ago, Santrisa was talking about these guys hanging out in front of the building. And so we started calling again. It never seems to stop. It's always, you get it sort of under control and then you gotta come back out. But, and that's because we haven't taken all the next steps. We've begun, and Amendilo's done a lot of work on this, our asset mapping, and we have the whole thing mapped out. This community has a lot of wonderful assets. There were, at the time when Black folk could not travel all across the country, many of the green homes, which are described in a book by Mr. Green out of New York, postman out of New York, there were many green homes that existed there, right there along Calumet Avenue and along 51st Street. So this community has a lot going for it, and beautiful land, lots of vacant land, and we want to build on that land. And we first took a look at the assets to make sure that we understood what was there. We worked with the 51st Street Business Association, and we pulled everybody together to talk about how we move forward. This pandemic has slowed us down considerably. In prior years, we've had a parade every year that celebrates Earth Day, and Amadilo can talk about that, and how we are connected to the earth and how we need to protect the earth. The 2 gardens that we currently have are examples that we planted 22 trees in our Piece of Peace garden, and Amadilo and John have worked on putting together the garden at 53rd, 54th, and Calumet, yeah, right behind the school there. And so we're slowly building something. We don't know exactly what it is going to ultimately be, but we'd like to see housing. We'd like to see new businesses. We'd like to see good schools. I mean, right now, the schools that we have in the community need a lot of work. And Amadilo and John have been working in, what's the name of that school?
Burke Elementary.
Burke Elementary, yeah. So,
and in fact, Timo Black is a alumnus of Burke Elementary. He graduated from that school. And
Dylan, can you tell folks who Timo Black is? I think it's important people know.
Yeah, Timo Black is 101 years old now.
102.
Okay, pardon me. Yeah, so he's 102. He's been in this community all of his active life. Is an internationally known figure in the civil rights movement and various other movements, and a historian, teacher, taught many. I run into people all the time that tell me he was their teacher. He was their history teacher in high school, and very dedicated to preserving the history of Bronzeville and the Black experience here in Chicago. And as we said, he was an alumnus of Burke Elementary School, graduated from there. And there's a media center that we helped to develop and dedicate in his honor in the school. And we've done programming there with the students. Prior to the pandemic, we had a environmental justice program that was being implemented there, and we were meeting there twice a week for the entire school year, and we did a lot of programming around the school garden that they have there, and our goal was to tie the 2 gardens together: the school garden on 54th and Calumet, and then our Piece of Peace garden on 51st and Calumet, and use that as kind of a catalyst to bring the people together. There's physical barriers in that, as Doc said. There's these big gaps of vacant land, so people don't really have a lot of physical contact. You could stand on that block for days and not see people coming in and out of their houses unless you were really, just there to do surveillance. So we wanted to try to do more with bringing people together through public events and block clubs and things like that, and block parties and that type of thing. And Santrice, I wanted to ask you real quick, just to backtrack a little bit. Mm-hmm. How is that situation with those young guys? I know I stopped by there one evening, maybe about 2 months ago, and I was shocked because I saw what you were talking about. I mean, it was like it was ridiculous how many of them guys were out there surrounding your place. Have you heard back from the alderman, or have you gotten any?
No, after I sent that letter, unfortunately, I haven't been contacted by anybody, but we did receive a newsletter from the management office with a roster of the staff with the property management and emergency contact number. and with the chief of police number attached, and saying see something, say something, maybe that have something to do with it, I'll take that. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking for a lot more, but I'll take that. That's a start. And to answer your question, as far as did it die down, it did. But I think it's just due to the weather. When it's warmer, they hang out more, and when it get cold, they kind of migrate. So I think that plays a part in why we don't see them as much.
Okay. Well, yeah, we definitely should have a strategy going into the spring to try to, address that before it becomes a problem again. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask. What's worked so far? And if something's working, how do you keep it moving?
Well, I think the only thing that works so far is, kind of sort I say being consistent with calling the police, but that gets frustrating because what they do is we call the police, they'll roll around, the crowd will leave, and when they see the police leave, they come back. And then also we have a cited security company that comes, they'll sit for about 30 minutes or so and leave. And then the people come back. So it's kind of frustrating. So the only thing that semi-works is calling, but it's no consistent solution because the element they observe and they see how they operate. They say, hey, I know they're going to come out around this time. They're going to wait around this amount of time. We'll wait for them to leave and then we come right back. So it's like, it's not really a good solution.
I know we had done a couple of resource fairs, John, that were, there were mixed results. We actually had recruited a group of young men that were out there. They're basically making minimum wage selling drugs. And so we were trying to offer them an alternative and a lot of them want to get out of that cycle. They really don't want to do what they're doing because once they get into it, they realize that all the hype they see in the rap videos is just that. It has nothing to do with the reality that they're facing. So, but actually getting them to come to a orientation and engage in the process of getting into a work environment. A lot of them have no soft skills at all in terms of how to function in the workplace. They have the heart to do it, but the infrastructure and the basic mechanism for them to actually go consistently into a workplace and function and use that as a stepping stone to other things, that's a whole nother ball game. So, and I think ultimately that's the only way you're going to effectively deal with that, because as Teresa said, they're smart enough to know how to maintain their business, and avoid the authorities and keep their hustle going. And unless you providing some alternative that's really going to balance that out for them in a real world way, not just based on what we think they should do or how they should act, but in their reality where they function, that's a hard nut to crack right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that. And there's no magic wand system that's going to solve all this. I think it's a multitude of things, but I do think that, or at least that I want to ask the assets that you use in your community that helps to move the dial. That and you spoke a little bit about that, Amadelo, and you did too, Dr. Karanja, around the phone tree, and is there activation around how you engage with other people on the block, or you talked about how to use green space. So how would you use the assets that are there?
Yeah, well, go ahead, Doc.
You want to go? You go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just going to say, our strategy and where we're focusing our attention right now is on building this block club. And and we had actually went out a few times. We had flyers and we were going door to door and just engaging people. And there was definitely interest. You know, people want to see a change, and they look at you kind of funny, like, oh, okay, this is just another hustle. But like Santrisa said, once they see you consistent and you're coming back, it builds that trust. But because we can't do, you know, face-to-face, door-to-door stuff right now, that kind of slowed that process. But we have made contacts. Our work in the school, a lot of those kids that go to the school live in the area. I see them up and down the block sometimes. And, you know, so that is a work in progress to you know, and I think it's not so much about mass organizing as it is about, you know, building one-on-one trust with a few key people. And that's something that, you know, the virus certainly isn't allowing us to do right now, but that is, I think, you know, our next key focus is to tap into the leaders that are already there. In fact, the other day I was cutting the grass in the Burke Garden about 2 weeks ago. And this guy came by and he was all excited. He said, yeah, man, I see you out here sometimes. And I saw the garden got overgrown and I really been wanting to work with you guys. See, I live right down the block. And he works with kids over at the Washington Park Field House, takes them out fishing and stuff. So he's really committed. And in fact, I told him about the leadership training, which you probably should talk about that, the leadership training as well. That's another key component. But he wants to participate. And we're looking for about 10 people to be in that training, which is going to be starting next week if all goes according to plan. But I think that's the main effort right now, John, is to pick up the pieces of that block club and tie this Calumet strip together and just continue to build and maybe create a situation where we could get a building built that Santrisa could be an owner in and, you know, not have to leave her community and be able to establish some strong roots there and make that block really be a prideful place to be.
You know, we had begun some conversations with what's the lady's name that came to us?
Dion Bowe.
Dion, yeah, Bowe, and we were talking about how to make the next steps, and some of the next steps are to hook up with the new head of planning at the city and begin to talk about how we move this forward. Now, it's not like we haven't done this before. I mean, we did it with the Mid-South Plan back in the 70s and 80s, but now it's time to do it in Washington Park, which has much more available land. When we were dealing with it in Grand Boulevard and Douglas and all of those other communities, we were looking at developed but underdeveloped communities. Now we're looking at vacant land, and it gives us much more of an opportunity to move this forward. One of the challenges that Amadila just mentioned is the need for people to understand that they can lead from whatever position they're in. And so one of the things that we've done when we were dealing with the Mid-South Plan is we created this leadership training. Barack Obama, and
That guy.
and several other people were involved in the actual planning of that first. And we created what was called the Lugenia Burns Hope Center for the study and development of New World community. That's Ayana put that title together. but it's really a very great way to interact with people that are wanting to take control of their community, and that's what we put together this curriculum. You have a copy of the curriculum?
Yeah, I do. Let me grab one.
Yeah. Okay. That we're going to begin sharing with whatever number of community folk we have. I know Miss Santrisa is involved, and
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
Darnetta Brooks, and Darnetta Donegan, and some other folk are going to be involved. We may have 6, we may have 10. We don't know what we're going to have yet. But next Thursday at 6 o'clock, we're hoping to start, Santrisa. You heard this, okay. You heard it right.
I'm ready.
So
here's a sample.
Amendilo's been doing all of the what do you call it? Design work.
Yeah.
So that's it. You can see the Maatian values and principles on the front of it.
Yeah.
Truth, justice, righteousness, balance, order, propriety, and harmony. And also compassion. There are 37 of them. So we go from, and you can see we have all of the key folks in the community involved. Amendilo's teaching the course, one of the courses. Dr. Elaine Ferguson, who's a medical doctor, got her MD from Brown University, but she's also a holistic doctor. She's going to be teaching the health course. We've got Ayana Karanja, who's going to teach a course on ethnography and getting to know yourself and know yourself in a deep kind of way. So all of that is going to be going on in the classes, and we're very excited about that, because we think that people need to know that the skills that they already have can be built upon, and that they can be used right where they are. And they're already using them anyway. They just need to recognize them as what they are, the skills that are necessary and useful in terms of taking leadership in your community, in your house, in your heart, in yourself. Because self-leadership is one of the most critical pieces of this whole thing. And that's what Ayana works with folks on around the autoethnography. So we're excited about that, and we're going to get to it. But key to once we complete that, and we'll probably do that like twice a year once we start, we will also begin our connections with the city and with Sandra Bivens, who's the head of the 51st Street Business Association, and go back to Bo and work with her, because we want this to become something where we are building a building or multiple buildings where people can live, own if they want to, rent if they want to, but we want to build something magnificent, hopefully on that street right behind Miss Santresa, or maybe right next door. There's a whole lot right there. But wherever we can build it, we're gonna build it. That's what we're hoping to do. So.
Well, I appreciate y'all, and thank you for sharing, Doc. Last question. What would you want people to learn from the work that you do?
What is that?
What would you want people to learn? What gift would you want people to learn out of the work that you do with Maya?
I think above all for me is to just have a heart for people. I think when you're doing community organizing, a lot of times people come in with great passion, and sometimes they may not have a lot of experience in working with other people, and you see a lot of stress and tension, and just the human condition. And you got to come into it with that understanding and knowing that that's what you're signing up for. You know, I've seen a lot of people get very disappointed and frustrated and angry and even condescending toward the people that they're trying to organize because they want them to think like them. They want them to, you know, have it all worked out. But it's like, that's why you're going in there, you know, to confront some of these issues. So you got to be prepared for that and know that that's what you're there for, you know.
Well, I think Amandilo has hit on the key piece. You got to really care about something outside yourself. You got to care about the people that you're working with. First, you got to have a love for yourself.
Yes.
You got to really understand that loving yourself is a critical part of doing anything successfully. And then understanding that everybody is going to come at it from a whole different angle. Or maybe they're just like you, but you know, you're not going to find most folks just like you. But you got to figure out how you can support them. As Zora Neale Hurston says, you got to prop them up on every leaning side. So I mean, that's what we try to do. We come in there and we try to work with folk and get them to see their strengths. I mean, sometimes we can see their strengths and they can't see them. So we get them to see their strengths, and then we try to help them build on those strengths and move the dial on down the road to we get new housing, new businesses, new schools, new whatever that everybody wants. We're not trying to put anything in that nobody wants. We want stuff that folk want and can use. And once you've done that, once you have accomplished even a little bit of that, you know, you won't ever stop. At least that's been my experience. You keep doing it, keep trying to do it with whoever you encounter that is like-minded or has the same kinds of ambitions that you have for your community. So, I mean, I want them to learn that they can make it. They can. This sounds trite, but make a difference. They can make an impact, and they don't have to be any kind of genius. They just need to be focused on the task and keeping it moving. And it won't happen overnight. It happens over time.
And the last piece that, you know, sort of the larger piece that I just want to leave with is that a lot of this is around how do we cut violence in our own communities without having to constantly call the police. I think you hit on a lot of that. And then also the you know, with Santrisa had shared, you know, the challenge of you have to sometimes have the police involved in these situations, but what that looks like. So is there any evidence of the work that you're doing right now that you can say, well, you know, because of our ground game, that the work that we're doing, we're not having to call the police as much? And it goes back to sort of the ideals of how do you, when you defund the police, what does that look like, you know?
Well, I'm not necessarily. I wish Tia was here because she's an abolitionist. She says we got to get rid of them. Well, see, if we know what the history of the police, we know that they come out of a slave enforcement process, and that they have grown from that experience, and they therefore don't have much of the humanity that is needed to really transition from their police mentality to their human mentality. So it has to be rebuilt from that perspective at the very least. I mean, you've got to get police that have a sense of their own humanity. As a matter of fact, we should be asking them to join the leadership training.
Yeah, really. No, that's a
Yo,
great idea.
yeah. You got some slots left open?
So,
Yeah.
so I mean, because they really do miss
No, that's
out.
not a
Now,
bad
we've had,
idea to propose that we set up one just for the police.
yeah, maybe so, maybe
Yeah.
so. And I don't know whether they come, but it certainly won't hurt to try. You know, 'cause
Mhm.
they come with a kind of attitude and a kind of chip on their shoulder approach to folk. Now we've seen them soften towards us as they've met with us and been involved with us and worked with us, that kind of thing. And we've worked with them. But then all of a sudden, you know, you get folk that you've been working with, then the next thing you know, they got a new commander in the neighborhood, or a new set of police people walking the neighborhood. So that's one of the problems is they keep changing the characters in the game, and that's a real challenge. But I think those that we've interacted with, they come. The ones that we had worked with, they would come to the garden, they hang out with us, they come to our meetings, that kind of thing. So that and after a while they began to take on but what I can say happened as a result of our efforts is that those homicides that were prevalent in 2016 are now down to 2 or 3 per year. Now, whether that is entirely because of us or whether the population has moved or what, but we know that, and they've stayed that way. We used to have our regular monthly meetings with the police, but now they still have them. They're having them on Zoom, but I haven't been attending those on Zoom, mostly because I haven't been able to get into the Zoom meeting. But now that I had this experience, maybe I'll be able to get into the next Zoom meeting.
Thank you. I've been dealing for like introducing Doc to some technology, right?
It's a slow process.
Hey, I know. Does anybody have anything else to add in closing? Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your wisdom. In the conversation, and we will continue. Maybe this is part 1, because I definitely want to know what's happening with Santrice over on the block. You know, I appreciate you, Queen.
We'll call you out when we build that building. That's
yeah, man. No doubt.
Go.
Well, peace and blessings to all of y'all, and you have a wonderful rest of the day. And
Thank you.
so
You
much.
too.
All right.
Yeah, same to you.
All right. Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Abdella.